Good morning. Today's Wednesday. Today I woke up. I said I'm going to be happy. I don't care what's going on around me. I'm going to embrace the notion of happiness today. And I would like everyone that's following me on social media to do the same. Forgive that person that hurt you the most. Let that pain go. Take the initiative on your business. If you have to change something like stop smoking or anything of that nature, do it. Today's the day. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it today.
The morning sun broke over North Lauderdale, Florida, as Jennifer Bellony prepared for another day of school drop-offs. Her 15-year-old daughter, Anastasia, affectionately known as Nana, gathered her backpack while Jennifer's two young sons climbed into the car. It was April 13th, 2022, a Wednesday like any other, filled with a familiar rhythm of a mother's routine. Jennifer was on the phone with her mother, their voices mixing with the sounds of breakfast dishes and hurried goodbyes. Then, through the window, she spotted a figure approaching. "Mom, I have to go," she said abruptly, ending the call. Moments later, gunshots shattered the morning quiet. By the time neighbors rushed outside, Jennifer and Anastasia lay motionless in front of their townhome. The two young boys, still buckled in the car, had witnessed the unthinkable. Their mother and sister gunned down in broad daylight. This isn't just another true crime story. This is about a woman who fought to build a safe haven for her children after escaping a toxic relationship. It's about a teenage daughter with her whole life ahead of her. It's about a community left wondering how such violence could erupt on an ordinary Wednesday morning. Before we continue, I need to ask you something important. By understanding Jennifer and Anastasia's story, you're helping ensure they aren't forgotten, that their lives meant more than their final moments. If you believe these stories need to be told, not just for the victims, but for those who might be facing similar dangers right now, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us bring attention to cases that might otherwise fade from memory. Jennifer Bellony radiated warmth. Those who knew her described a woman whose laughter could fill a room, infectious, genuine, and frequent despite life's challenges. Born and raised in Margate, Florida, Jennifer had built a reputation as someone who would drop everything to help a friend, regardless of the hour. She was a beautiful soul, recalled her aunt Belinda Bellony, always positive, always finding reasons to smile even when times were tough. As the owner of Bellony Financial Solutions, Jennifer had carved out her own path in the tax preparation business. Her entrepreneurial spirit matched her determination to provide stability for her three children. She worked tirelessly, often burning the midnight oil during the tax season, yet never complained about the long hours. Her crown jewel was Anastasia, her firstborn, her confidant, her motivation. Jennifer once wrote on social media that Anastasia was the reason I grew up, the reason I push myself every day, my unconditional love. The mother-daughter bond transcended typical parent-child relationships. They were best friends. Anastasia inherited her mother's vibrant personality. At 15, she was already showing signs of the woman she would become. Intelligent, responsible, funny, and outgoing. Friends described her as a shining light, much like her mother. Jennifer's two young sons completed the family picture. After purchasing their North Lauderdale townhome, Jennifer had created the stable, loving environment she'd always wanted for her children. The walls held photos of beach trips, birthday celebrations, and quiet moments of everyday joy. What made Jennifer truly remarkable wasn't just her professional success or her parenting skills, it was her resilience. After weathering a decade-long turbulent relationship and eventual divorce from Andre Anglin, Jennifer refused to be defined by her past. Instead, she focused on building a future. She never spoke badly about her ex-husband in front of the children, a close friend noted. Even when things were at their worst, she maintained her dignity and protected their relationship with their father. Jennifer Bellony wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And that made what happened on that April morning all the more devastating. Jennifer and Andre Anglin's story began like many others, high school sweethearts with dreams of building a life together. Their relationship spanned more than a decade, evolving from teenage romance to marriage and parenthood. But beneath the surface of family photos and shared holidays, troubling patterns were emerging. Andre struggled to maintain steady employment, explained a family member who witnessed the relationship's evolution. Jennifer became the primary breadwinner early on, handling both financial responsibilities and childcare. The imbalance created tension, but it was Andre's behavior that truly strained their bond. According to Jennifer's family, he developed problematic habits, including substance use, that altered his temperament. More concerning were his repeated threats of self-harm, a manipulation tactic that kept Jennifer emotionally tethered to him, even as other aspects of their relationship deteriorated. He would threaten to hurt himself if she tried to leave, said Bellony. It was emotional blackmail, pure and simple. As their children grew, so did Andre's controlling tendencies. What began as jealousy evolved into monitoring Jennifer's movements and communications. Friends noticed Jennifer becoming increasingly isolated, making excuses for missed gatherings and social events. By 2018, the situation had escalated to physical intimidation. Court records showed Jennifer sought a domestic violence restraining order, citing explicit threats to her life. A temporary order was granted, but when the hearing date arrived for a permanent order, Jennifer didn't follow through, a decision that family members later attributed to Andre's persuasive promises to change. This cycle repeated itself twice before Jennifer finally made the difficult decision to end the marriage in 2020. The divorce was contentious, with Andre resisting at every turn. He couldn't accept that she was serious this time, recalled a neighbor who witnessed several heated arguments outside their home. He kept saying she'd come back like she always did. But Jennifer had reached her breaking point. With 3 children depending on her, Anastasia and her 2 young sons, she recognized that breaking the cycle was necessary for their well-being and her own. What Jennifer couldn't have known was that ending the relationship wouldn't end the danger. In fact, statistics show that the period after leaving an abusive partner is often the most dangerous for victims of domestic violence. Andre's behavior would prove this tragic reality all too true. Have you ever known someone who showed incredible strength while rebuilding their life after a toxic relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The day Jennifer signed the final divorce papers in 2020 marked not an ending but a beginning. With determination in her eyes and her children by her side, she embarked on the challenging journey of rebuilding her life from the ground up. Her first major step was securing permanent housing, a townhome in North Lauderdale that represented more than just shelter. It was a sanctuary, a place where she and her children could establish new routines, free from the tension that had permeated their previous home. She was so proud of that house, remembered a close friend. She'd send pictures of every little improvement she made. New curtains, a garden she planted with the kids, a reading nook for Anastasia. It was like watching someone bloom. Professionally, Jennifer poured her energy into expanding Bellony financial solutions. Her client base grew steadily as word spread about her meticulous work and personable approach. Tax season became her busiest time, but she managed the workload while still attending her children's school events and maintaining family dinners. Despite the divorce, Jennifer maintained a civil relationship with Andre for the sake of their children. She continued to support him both emotionally and financially, helping with job applications, offering encouragement during his low periods, and ensuring he remained connected to their children. That was just Jennifer's way, her mother explained. Even after everything he put her through, she wanted him to be okay, to be a good father to their kids. What Jennifer wouldn't do, however, was reconcile. Andre's repeated requests to move back in were met with gentle but firm refusals. She explained to friends that while she wanted him in their children's lives, she had finally found peace in independence. This stance frustrated Andre. Text messages recovered later showed his increasing desperation to reestablish the relationship. "We belong together," he wrote in one message. "The kids need both parents under one roof," he insisted in another. Jennifer held her ground, focusing instead on creating new traditions with her children. Sunday movie nights, Saturday morning pancakes, after-school park visits. Anastasia, at 15, had become her mother's right hand, helping with her younger brothers and contributing to household responsibilities with remarkable maturity. "They were finding their rhythm," said Bellony. Jennifer was finally living life on her own terms, making decisions without fear of backlash or criticism. But Andre's presence remained on the periphery of their new life, his messages growing more frequent, his drive-bys of the house more common. Jennifer confided in close friends that while she wasn't afraid of Andre, she was growing weary of his persistence. "I just want him to move on like I have," she told a colleague in March 2022, just weeks before the tragedy. "I'll always care about him as the father of my children, but that chapter of my life is closed." What Jennifer couldn't see was that Andre wasn't reading the same book anymore. While she was writing a story of renewal and independence, he was plotting a final, devastating chapter. The warning signs were there, scattered throughout the years like alarm bells that rang too quietly to prompt action. Andre Anglin's history of domestic violence didn't begin with the final fatal encounter. It had been building for years, documented in both official records and family observations. In 2009, Andre received his first conviction for domestic violence, though the details of this case remain sealed. What is known is that this early incident didn't serve as the wake-up call it should have been. Instead, it became the first note in a dangerous crescendo that would play out over the next 13 years. By 2018, Jennifer's situation had deteriorated to the point where she sought legal protection. Court documents reveal her petition for a domestic violence restraining order, citing explicit threats against her life. The judge granted a temporary order, recognizing the immediate danger Jennifer faced. However, when the date arrived for the hearing to make the order permanent, Jennifer didn't appear. This critical moment, a crossroads that might have altered the trajectory of events to come, passed without the protection being extended. "He believed him when he promised to change," explained Jennifer's mother. "He would cry, beg for forgiveness, swear he'd get help. And Jennifer, with her big heart, wanted to believe him." This pattern of threats, followed by reconciliation, continued even after their divorce was finalized in 2020. Family members reported that Andre would frequently drive by Jennifer's new home, sometimes parking across the street for hours. He sent messages alternating between declarations of love and ominous warnings. "If I can't have you, no one will," read one message, recovered from Jennifer's phone after her death. Jennifer confided in her aunt Belinda that Andre had expressed a desire to move back in, despite her clear refusal. "He doesn't accept that it's over," she told Belinda in early 2022. "He talks like it's just a matter of time before we're back together." What makes Jennifer's story particularly heartbreaking is that she did everything society tells victims of domestic violence to do. She left the relationship, established independence, maintained boundaries, and even sought legal protection at one point. Yet the systems designed to protect her had gaps that Andre exploited. The escalation followed a pattern familiar to domestic violence experts. As Jennifer became more established in her independence, growing her business, creating a stable home for her children, potentially even beginning to date again, Andre's sense of control diminished, and his behavior became more unpredictable. Before we continue with what happened next, I want to take a moment to address something important. Stories like Jennifer's aren't just tragedies to be consumed. They're urgent calls to action. If you believe in raising awareness about domestic violence and supporting those who may be silently suffering, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps these crucial stories reach more people who might need to hear them. Together we can honor Jennifer and Anastasia's memory by potentially saving others from similar fates. What warning signs do you think are most often missed in potentially dangerous situations like Jennifer's? Share your thoughts in the comments below. April 13th, 2022 began like countless other Wednesdays in the Bellony household. Jennifer woke early, as was her habit during the school year. She prepared breakfast for her children while reviewing her work schedule for the day. Tax season was in full swing and her calendar was filled with client appointments. Anastasia emerged from her bedroom, backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair freshly styled. At 15, she was in the midst of her high school years, balancing academics with an emerging social life. Jennifer's two younger sons were already dressed in their school uniforms, finishing their breakfast at the kitchen table. It was 7:15 a.m. when Jennifer called her mother, a daily ritual that had become part of her morning routine. They chatted briefly about ordinary things, the weather, upcoming weekend plans, a family birthday celebration they were organizing. Jennifer mentioned she needed to leave soon to drop the children at school before heading to her office. Then, mid-conversation, Jennifer's tone changed abruptly. "Mom, I have to go," she said, her voice tense. "He's here." Those were the last words Jennifer's mother would ever hear from her daughter. According to neighbors who later spoke to investigators, Jennifer and Anastasia had walked out to the car where the two boys were already waiting. Andre Anglin appeared suddenly, approaching from the street rather than pulling into the driveway. There was a brief verbal exchange, too distant for witnesses to hear clearly, before Andre pulled out a handgun. The first shots were fired at Jennifer, who collapsed near the driver's side door. Anastasia, witnessing her mother fall, attempted to flee, running toward a neighbor's home. Andre turned the weapon on his daughter, firing multiple times as she ran. She made it approximately 20 yards before falling. All of this occurred in full view of Jennifer's young sons, still buckled into the back seat of the car. Neighbors, alerted by the gunshots, emerged from their homes to a scene of horror. One called 911 while another attempted to provide aid to Jennifer and Anastasia, but their injuries were catastrophic. By the time emergency services arrived minutes later, both mother and daughter had succumbed to their wounds. Andre Anglin had already fled the scene. "I heard the shots and looked out my window," recounted a neighbor who lived across the street. "I saw him running to his car. He looked calm. That's what haunts me. He didn't look panicked or out of control. He looked like someone who had accomplished exactly what he came to do." The boys, traumatized but physically unharmed, were quickly removed from the scene by first responders. They were later placed in the care of Jennifer's mother, who received the devastating news while still trying to understand why her daughter's phone call had ended so abruptly. News of the double homicide spread quickly through the tight-knit community. Friends and family gathered at the police perimeter, many in disbelief that the vibrant lives of Jennifer and Anastasia had been extinguished so violently, so suddenly. "They were just going to school," Bellony told reporters through tears. "Just a normal morning." How does this happen on a normal morning? As investigators processed the crime scene, one question loomed large. Where was Andre Anglin? The murder of Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony triggered an immediate and intensive manhunt for Andre O'Dane Anglin. The Broward Sheriff's Office issued an arrest warrant and his photograph was circulated to law enforcement agencies across Florida. Digital billboards along major highways displayed his image, and local news stations broadcast regular updates, warning the public that Anglin was considered armed and dangerous. For 5 days, Anglin managed to evade capture. Investigators later determined he had been moving between various locations, staying with acquaintances who were unaware of his actions or the manhunt underway. His movement suggested a man without a plan, someone who had focused entirely on the act of violence without considering what would come after. The breakthrough came on Monday, April 18, when BSO's VIPER, Violence Intervention Proactive Enforcement Response Unit, received information about Anglin's possible location. Surveillance teams tracked him to a gas station at 901 W Sunrise Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, approximately 7 miles from the scene of the murders. As deputies approached the gas station, Anglin entered the store's bathroom. Officers attempted to establish communication, calling out to him from outside the door. Their efforts to negotiate a peaceful surrender were met with silence, followed by a single gunshot. When deputies breached the bathroom door, they found Andre Anglin dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The man who had taken 2 lives had now taken his own, denying Jennifer and Anastasia's loved ones the closure that might have come from a trial and conviction. Broward Sheriff Gregory Toney addressed the media shortly after Anglin's death was confirmed. "I'm very proud of the excellent work conducted by our investigators and VIPER unit," he stated. "They located and tracked down a menace to society. Unfortunately, this coward decided to take his own life rather than face justice for the heinous murders he committed." For Jennifer's family, Anglin's suicide was yet another painful twist in an already devastating ordeal. There would be no opportunity to confront him in court, no chance to ask the questions that haunted them, no moment to look him in the eye and speak for the women whose voices he had silenced. "He took the easy way out," said a family friend who had known Jennifer since childhood. First he destroys a family, then he escapes accountability. Where's the justice in that? The community's response to the tragedy was immediate and heartfelt. A memorial grew outside the Bellony home with flowers, candles, stuffed animals, and handwritten notes covering the area where Jennifer and Anastasia had fallen. Neighbors organized a vigil, and hundreds attended, many of whom had never met the Bellony family but were moved by their story. Jennifer's two young sons, now without both parents, faced an uncertain future. Their grandmother assumed guardianship, vowing to raise them with stories of their mother's strength and their sister's spirit. But the trauma they experienced, witnessing the violent deaths of their mother and sister, would require long-term professional support. "Those boys saw something no child should ever see," said a victim advocate assigned to the case. "The road ahead for them is long and difficult." What country or state are you watching from, and how are domestic violence cases handled in your area? Share in the comments below. Your insight could help others understand how these situations are addressed in different communities. Jennifer Bellony's story illuminates a devastating truth. Domestic violence often follows predictable patterns that, when recognized, might save lives. Her case contains numerous indicators that experts identify as red flags, warning signs that were visible but not adequately addressed by available systems. The most glaring warning sign in Jennifer's case was Andre's history of threats. When someone threatens harm, whether to themselves or others, these statements should never be dismissed as merely emotional outbursts. Andre's repeated threats of self-harm functioned as emotional manipulation, keeping Jennifer tethered to a relationship she was trying to leave. Threats of suicide are a powerful control tactic, explains Dr. Lisa Fontes, author of Invisible Chains: Overcoming Coercive Control in Your Intimate Relationship. They place an enormous burden on the victim, making them feel responsible for their abuser's well-being. Another critical indicator was Andre's inability to accept the end of the relationship. The period after separation is statistically the most dangerous time for victims of domestic abuse. When Jennifer purchased her own home and established independence, Andre's sense of control diminished, leading to escalating behaviors, driving by her house, sending threatening messages, and expressing entitlement to reconciliation. The 2018 restraining order that Jennifer initially sought but didn't finalize represents a common challenge in domestic violence cases. Victims often withdraw from protective measures due to fear, manipulation, or practical concerns about child care and financial stability. This doesn't indicate the danger has passed. Rather, it suggests additional barriers to safety exist. What can communities do to better protect people in Jennifer's situation? First, we must improve how restraining orders are implemented and enforced. When Jennifer didn't appear for her final hearing, this should have triggered follow-up from victim advocates, not simply case dismissal. Second, we need comprehensive support systems that address the practical challenges of leaving an abusive relationship: housing, childcare, financial stability, and ongoing safety planning. Jennifer had resources many victims lack: a successful business, family support, her own home. Yet these weren't enough to protect her. Third, we must educate ourselves and others about the dynamics of domestic violence. Many still ask, why didn't she just leave? Without understanding that leaving is often the most dangerous point in an abusive relationship. The question should instead be, how can we make leaving safer? For those currently in dangerous situations, resources exist. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, 7233. Local shelters and advocacy organizations. Legal aid services specializing in protective orders. Safety planning assistance through victim services. For friends and family who suspect someone is in danger, your role is crucial. Offer support without judgment, help create safety plans, and remain connected, even when the victim seems to reconcile with their abuser. Your consistent presence could provide a lifeline when they're ready to leave. Jennifer did everything society tells victims to do. She left, established independence, and even sought legal protection at one point. Her story reminds us that our systems still have critical gaps that leave vulnerable people exposed to danger. By learning from these tragedies, we can work toward creating more effective interventions and support networks. The most important lesson from Jennifer's story may be this: take threats seriously. Whether they're threats of self-harm or harm to others, they're significant indicators of potential violence that should never be dismissed. In the days following the murders, the North Lauderdale community transformed the area outside the Bellony home into a living memorial. Candles flickered day and night, their flames standing vigil for the lives extinguished too soon. Bouquets of flowers, many in purple, the color representing domestic violence awareness, lined the sidewalk where Jennifer and Anastasia had fallen. Anastasia's classmates created a remembrance wall at her high school, covering it with photographs, handwritten notes, and artwork celebrating her 15 years of life. Teachers spoke of her academic promise, her kindness toward other students, and the bright future that had been stolen from her. She was going to be somebody special, said her English teacher. She already was somebody special. Jennifer's clients from Bellony Financial Solutions shared stories of her professionalism mixed with genuine care for their financial well-being. Many spoke of how she had helped them navigate complex tax situations, often charging less than she could have because she understood their financial constraints. She wasn't just my tax preparer, one longtime client said. She was someone who celebrated with me when things were good and helped me figure out solutions when things were tough. For Jennifer's two surviving sons, the path forward began with therapy and the steady support of their grandmother and extended family. Too young to fully comprehend the permanence of their loss, they asked heartbreaking questions. When is Mommy coming home? Where did Nana go? The adults in their lives faced the impossible task of explaining a senseless tragedy to children who had witnessed it firsthand. Bellony established a trust fund for the boys' education and future needs, with contributions pouring in from community members, many of whom had never met the family but were moved by their story. Jennifer wanted more than anything for her children to have opportunities, Bellony explained. This fund ensures her wishes for their future will still be honored. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of Jennifer and Anastasia's legacy has been the renewed conversation about domestic violence in Broward County. Local advocacy organizations reported increased calls from people seeking information, both from those in potentially dangerous situations and from friends and family members concerned about loved ones. A domestic violence awareness workshop held 1 month after the murders drew over 300 attendees. Organizers had expected perhaps 50. Jennifer's story resonated with so many people, said the event coordinator. It showed that domestic violence doesn't discriminate. It affects successful, independent women just as it affects those who might seem more vulnerable. The Broward Sheriff's Office reviewed its protocols for handling domestic violence cases, with Sheriff Gregory Toney pledging to implement enhanced follow-up procedures for temporary restraining orders that aren't made permanent. If we can save even one life by learning from this tragedy, he stated, then we owe that to Jennifer and Anastasia's memory. In death, mother and daughter accomplished what they couldn't in life. They exposed the dangerous gaps in systems designed to protect victims of domestic violence, and they inspired action to address those gaps. Their story continues to serve as both a warning and a call to action, a reminder that behind statistics are real people with dreams, talents, and futures that deserve protection. On a quiet street in North Lauderdale, where children still ride bikes and neighbors exchange greetings, there remains an invisible line, the place where Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony took their final breaths on that April morning. Though the memorial candles have long since burned out and the flowers have been cleared away, their absence continues to echo through the lives they touched. Jennifer's story isn't unique, and that's precisely why it matters so profoundly. Every year in America, over 600 women are killed by current or former intimate partners. Behind each statistic is a Jennifer, someone who loved, dreamed, worked, and fought to create a better life. Behind each number is an Anastasia, a young person whose potential will never be realized. What makes their story particularly haunting is how close Jennifer came to escaping the cycle. She had taken the hardest steps, leaving the relationship, establishing independence, building a new life. She was just beginning to thrive when everything was taken from her. For Jennifer's two sons, now being raised by their grandmother, life continues with a permanent void. They are the unseen victims of domestic violence, children who must somehow construct their futures around an unspeakable trauma. Their journey represents both the enduring damage of domestic violence and the resilience of the human spirit. The tragedy of Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How many warning signs must appear before our systems respond effectively? How many restraining orders must be filed before protection becomes reality? How many threats must be made before they're taken seriously? These aren't abstract policy questions. They're matters of life and death. This is where you come in. Your engagement, liking this video, sharing it with others, and joining the conversation in the comments, creates a community of awareness. Perhaps someone watching right now is recognizing warning signs in their own relationship or in the relationship of someone they care about. Your support might be the catalyst that helps them find resources before it's too late. If Jennifer's story has moved you, honor her memory by taking action. Learn about domestic violence resources in your community. Support organizations that provide shelter and services to those fleeing abuse. Believe people when they express fear. Take threats seriously. Most importantly, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might save a life. Together, we can ensure that Jennifer and Anastasia's tragedy serves as more than just another true crime story. It can become a turning point in how we understand and respond to domestic violence. Because the most fitting memorial for Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony isn't flowers or candles, it's lives saved through the lessons their story teaches us. What action will you take today to help prevent similar tragedies in your community? Share your commitment in the comments below.